Okay, here we go. Uh, the 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 rocket ship is taking off. Yeah, and we're on it. Even those of us who are not in the U.S., we're on it, man. It's going to be a wild ride, much wilder than the first time we left orbit on with the Trump booster. Yeah, it's going to be wilder. Better for worse, man. I don't know how you feel about that, but well, I feel some kind of way actually, because at this stage in my life, I gotta say, uh, I I'm 64. I'm in September 3rd. I get signed up automatically for Medicare Plan A. Not even sure what that means, but whatever. That means I'm really headed into the world of retirement of this last third of my life. Hopefully it's a third. It could be the last 10% of my life. Might be the last year of my life. I have no idea. But the point is the last part of my life. And when you get to that place, for those of you who have, what you want is stability. Like that. You want that right there. Let me do that again. You want that. That's what I want to see every day. I want to open up the newspaper or click on whatever I click on, and I want stability. I want nothing crazy happen in the world. The markets are pretty stable. The politicians aren't nuts. Nobody's trying to pass any crazy legislation. It's just, we're trying to work it out with our enemies. There aren't that many wars happening. It's all just like, all right, we got this. No one's making these grandiose proclamations, and people aren't fighting in the streets, kind of thing. That's what you want, because you work really hard your whole life, put a lot of hours in, man, and you want to get to that last part, and you want just stability. You don't want to wake up and want to know whether what things are going to be like tomorrow, what crazy stuff's going to happen, right? Well, I don't know what's going to happen. So we really, of the two choices, the one choice is like kind of business as usual mostly, and there's a certain amount of instability with that, as we see. Well, like, my gosh, the whole immigration, and the market has been pretty stable though, right? I mean, that's one thing that carried on after Trump, and we got through COVID, and we rebounded and did a pretty decent job. The whole world did, for the most part, which is pretty amazing. But I think that we all right, thanks. Eric, thanks, man. I need that. Yeah, I know. I have the whole Penn State has their whole like Penn State piece of that, and it's all good, but I don't know what it means anyway. So yeah, I'm like, okay, we're gonna be in a bit of a ride, right? It's like getting on a roller coaster and thinking you ever get on really long one, and you kind of do all the crazy loop to loop stuff and whatever, and then you get to it kind of levels out, and you think, whew, okay, I'm done with that, and then boom, it jerks and you're off again. That's what I feel like. Yeah, it's like last night was the big jerk. Yeah, it's like, oh my god. I'm pretty flexible. I'm still young in my heart, and I'm young in my mind, and in my spirit, for the most part. It's good. I'm pretty flexible. I'm very flexible, actually, relatively speaking. Relative to I don't know, whatever. I'm quite flexible, but man, it gets tougher. It gets more difficult as you age. I was hitting some golf balls today, and like just the twisting of the body. I don't twist my body in the way that I used to. So it impacts my swing and my distance and all sorts of things. And it's okay, but so that's where we're at. So if you want to know what I'm thinking, that's what I woke up thinking. Like, oh, damn. All right. Whew. Just let me clear my head, and let's get ready for this wild ride. So now it could have been a lot more wild. Had Harris won by a smidge, And Trump, of course, would have declared victory. And, 80 to 90% of the Trump people who voted for Trump would have probably followed him. I say 80, 90%, I don't know what, but it seems like right now the number of Republicans, Trump supporters who think that he won the last election in 2000. And so it seems like, okay, well, this time, now that it's been even embedded further into their minds, that people would have followed that. And so that could have been a much more wild ride, to be honest, and a potentially really a dangerous one. So dangerous meaning just like very unpredictable and very problematic and very like, oh my God, do we really need to have for this to happen right now? So so it could have been even more of a wild ride, I suppose, actually. That would have been yeah, and more dangerous and very so I don't know, here we are. It's a crazy thing. All right, so listen, I really would and I would like to hear throw some things out. I'm curious about what you all are thinking. I'm not I didn't I thought it was going to go. Was I surprised? It's a question a number of people have asked me. It's like, yeah, I was thinking that Harris was going to pull this out. I was thinking, actually, it was 50-50, man. I just did not. I wasn't confident in either one of the candidates. So, yeah. I gotta say, I kind of was 50-50. So, and in a way, I wanted the most. So I got what I wanted with Trump winning. I wanted to not have the craziness of contesting the election. That a contestation, is that a word? I think it's a word. That could become violent pretty quickly. People mobilizing, that kind of stuff. So I got that. That was good. But in the long run, over the course of years, a Trump presidency is far more unpredictable. Yeah, far more unpredictable. We have no idea where this thing's going to go, and especially given the Congress and the courts. Yeah, it's really quite unpredictable. And so we don't know. And if people, you might think like, hey, but this is a really good thing. We need to go through and make all these sweeping changes. Well, hold back a little bit, because you can only push so far and so hard before people push back in a really serious way, which is of course why we have Trump in the first place, because this whole kind of world of critiquing power and white power and men and straight people and so on, right? All of that, rich people, wealthy people. The sort of a very kind of narrow critique of that. You can only say certain things so many times before people start saying like, wait, hang on a second. What? Wait, white people can't, what do you mean white people can't be racist? Laura was saying that this morning. Like, wait, what do you mean? At first it's kind of like, and then it's more and more and more and more and more and more. And then no one has like the answer. There isn't really a thoughtful answer to it. It's just pointing the finger at white people because people are just pissed at white people, which is like, okay, I get that, but you're going to get some blowback from that eventually. And yeah, all sorts of things. So, we'll let that be a warning let's see how far we try to see how far we want to really push this thing before we now get a different kind of response, which none of it I want, because remember, I'm 64. I'm looking for a right nice soft landing. Yeah. So not a landing per se. I'm looking for a really nice, soft, flight. The problem is it's already difficult. When you take a flight and you come down, you come down from the clouds, you go through the clouds, you hit turbulence, because that's where the turbulence always is, for sure, right? And so you're coming through the clouds, you got to get below them to, if there's not a lot of wind, you're mostly going to have it'll be fairly smooth once you get beneath the clouds. So it's necessarily part of the landing of any human being that you're going to hit some turbulence. It might be health issues, it might be family issues, it might be any number of things, adjusting to your body changing, to your mind changing, all sorts of things. So you're going to hit some. You just don't want too much, right? So how about that? All right, I said enough. Hey, Jeff, do we have any questions? Or Elijah, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, boss? I'm hearing everything you're saying. That's just, um, wow. I wrote some stuff down as you were going, but I don't want to stop your role. Please continue.
No, I'm all
Yeah.
right. I'm done with that role. I'm ready for a few questions. I want to hear what other people are thinking, and maybe make some statements. Doesn't have to be questions per se. I want to hear, Jeff, you can put some stuff up, and even yesterday, I know we had a couple questions from the stream that we didn't get to. I think that.
Yeah, I've got a few. Go ahead.
Yeah, you got. How about? Yeah, what do you got?
Just one from class 21, which was
You have
yesterday.
the one about the
Um,
DEI hire one. Wasn't there a question about that I didn't get to? Yeah.
Maybe Jeff might have that.
Here's the problem, right? Okay, this is the problem with affirmative action. And I didn't any kind of affirmative action, which is simply the meaning that, by the way, a nepotism is affirmative action. Okay, so when you take some kind of action in the affirmative, like a deliberate action in some sociological context to make something happen that, if left alone, it's very likely that it won't happen. Okay. So, you got a bunch of men on a corporate board, and there's 12 members of the board, and it's some corporation, they're all men, and you're like, hey, 2 people are resigning. We need to bring in 2 more members of the board. If you say nothing, it's probably going to happen. What will happen is what has gone on for the past 50 or 60 years, that 2 more men will come on the board, right? That's just kind of it. So you say like, oh, okay, it's just what probably will be the case. Okay. Because people will bring close to them people who are like them and people who they're used to. And so, so I'm not thinking that's not today, right? That I'm thinking historically speaking. So then people start turning around and saying, wait, hang on a second. Like, we have the civil rights movement on gender and on race and on culture, ethnicity, and religion. Don't forget, it's also about religion. The civil rights movement, right? So it's about Catholics and Jews, right? And Muslims and Hindus. But the civil rights movement was much more about Catholics and Jews. That those were issues that came up for people, because Catholics and Jews, especially Catholics in larger numbers, very often experienced a great amount of discrimination. So anyway, so people start coming up with these ideas like, wait, in order for us to break the system, in order for people not to just do business as usual, what we need is we're going to have to take some affirmative actions. Like, we got to take direct actions and be like, hey, hang on a second, y'all. Like, you can't just hire 2 more men, white men. Like, you got to bring some women in. Like, you got to talk, at least consider a woman, or consider a man who's not white. Because if you don't do that, if you don't step in and be like, hey guys, what's up? Like, let's go. Like, the guys are just going to be guys, and you don't notice it. They're not even going to pay attention. And that's, of course, why we have programs that are we ended up calling affirmative action programs. And it completely makes sense. It's great. Makes sense. Do it. Should do it. How else are you going to make the kinds of changes that we need to have happen? Because then the men will say, well, we're just not ready yet. It's like, well, when are you going to be ready? How many more hires do we have to have before you'll actually say, all right, hang on, we'll bring some people in from the outside? This is just a given, right? And any women on the stream, you really need to remember that most beneficiaries of affirmative action have been women. Okay, so that in men on the stream, that means, your wives, your daughters, your mothers, whatever. I mean, that's the nature of it, right? You got to bust these things open. So, all right. So but here's the problem, right? Hang on. So the other way, it very often hires or getting on a board. Let me use the board example. Who you going to bring on the board? You're going to bring on the board somebody else on the board already knows, probably. Hey, Mike, this buddy of mine who from wherever, I know him through this other person. Let's bring him in. Let's talk about him as a possibility, right? So you're connected. That's what nepotism is. You're connected in some way, right? You got to know somebody. In universities, by the way, and jobs all across the entire social system is built on nepotism. Everybody talks about it. It's who you know. It's not what you know. Like we teach at universities, make connections, connect with your professors, get internships, because this is about making connections. And, we know that, well, you don't have to be the smartest student. If people at the internship like you and they get to like you and say, Elijah, like, yeah, this Elijah kid, man. Yeah, he shows up on time, and they stop thinking about you as maybe, well, you're a pretty smart guy, but that we could have found someone who is smarter and more capable, right? Which is true for everybody. There's always someone who's smarter and more capable, because now they get to the place where they like you. And then like, okay, well, then they're much more likely to offer you a position because they know you and you're known quantity. You're like a known person. So why wouldn't you do that? It makes sense. Like, I don't want to start over. We're going to hire someone I've never even, this guy interned for us for a whole summer. Man, we know he's going to show up on time. He's going to not have body odor. He's going to shave the whole thing. Like, this is guy, he's going to say, yes, sir, no, sir, whatever. Not put his feet on his desk and show up to meetings prepared. It's like, okay, we got that. So wire him. It's okay. But that's nepotism. That's getting to know people. And then, because it quickly becomes like the person who gets the internship is the nephew of the golf partner of somebody who works at the company, right? And so it's these kinds of things. And my students all the time, man, all the time. Okay. So now hang on, I'm going to answer the question, right? So now you got DEI, which is saying like, all right, well, actually, we're going to like dig in here. We're going to push some kind of affirmative action in a way. We're going to try to get away from nepotism. We're going to deal with that because we got to deal with that, right? That's a problem. And I mean, it's not inherently a problem, but it is a problem because it's like a lot of people don't have connections. Lori and I had zero connections when we were coming out of college. We knew nobody. We're from the working class, man. We knew nobody. If we wanted to work in any kind of big organization or company or start a career, a professional career, we knew nobody. We would have gone absolutely nowhere. And so like, okay, we had to make it happen on our own. All right. So anyway, now you start these programs. Well, the problem is, oh, wait, how do we know that you're smart enough? Right. How do we know? Like, they told us we had to hire a woman. And so we brought 5 women in and we hired one of you, the best of the 5. But how do I know? Because historically we've hired men, and of course everybody we hire is brilliant, including me, because I'm brilliant and I'm part of this, right? Because that's how you see yourself, and people around you is really smart. But how do we know that you are? Because they told us we had to do this, right? And so that just is a question that sits in the back of people's minds. Like, well, I don't know. And then you got like, so then you have these affirmative action hires and DEI hires, and then it becomes much more problematic for people, right? You open up that window to question people's abilities, and sometimes they get questioned when it's nepotism hires. Oh, that's the boss's nephew. Yeah, he's a complete idiot, but he's the boss's nephew. Okay, those are extreme examples, but mostly on a day-to-day basis, nepotism doesn't get questioned that in the same way that affirmative action does, or DEI. DEI is just another way. DEI hire is another way to talk about affirmative action hire. And so Kamala Harris, okay. So, well, you're always going to find some reason. So now it's like, oh, well, you know, she was, she was, you know, brought under the wings of what's his name, Brown, out in California. What's his first name? Someone put in the chat. What's Brown's first name? Clarence, not Clarence Brown. I know this. I was just talking about him the other day. Anyway, so there are all sorts of things that Kamala Harris didn't, you know, like, well, let's question her, right? And so, like, why? What do we question? She's got a long list. She's very, very accomplished. Going back to school, not Jerry Brown. No, the other guy, the black guy, Willie Brown. Yep, Willie Brown. Yep. And so, like, this Willie Brown was a man. He was a California politician to the nth degree. Man, this guy, he was a player, and could do stuff that, man, I can't even imagine that kind of stuff. So anyway, but she's incredibly accomplished. She's really smart. She thinks from one thing after another, and you can always pick out things that she screwed up a press conference or screwed this up or screwed that up. But that's true for everybody, man. Go back through every class I've ever done. You will find things that you're just like, oh, this guy's an idiot. You know, yesterday I was talking about when I first shot a gun, and I think I was like 3 or 4 years old. And later my buddy was like, dude, what do you mean 3 or 4? And I'm like, yeah, I know, I was 6. I don't know what I was thinking, but in the moment I said 3 or 4 or whatever I said. Okay, I was 6. Okay, I had a BB gun. I got a BB gun when I was 4, going on 5, right? And my mother was really pissed that my dad gave me a BB gun. It was one of those, like, not the Red Ryder one, but it was, you know, a pump action one. And but yeah, I didn't shoot my first gun. It was a 22 I shot. I was 6, almost 7, going on 7. So anyway, that's pretty dumb. You could show that and be like, this guy's an idiot. You can find all sorts of little clips. But so anyway, why do we question that about Harris, man? She's who else is more accomplished? Like, you know what I mean? Like Trump, you know, oh my God, like who? JD Vance? JD Vance is, you know, he went to school, did well in school, went into the military, did well in the military, went to law school at an Ivy, did pretty well, but everybody says, like, okay, yeah, he's pretty accomplished. Well, so is Kamala Harris. So, I mean, you know, so anyway, do I think her gender made it, her race? I don't think her race made a difference. I think her gender did. I just do. I just feel, I'm not making excuses for that, but I think that it's hard. I just feel like, I don't know how much of a difference. I'm not saying her race probably made a difference too, a subtle difference, but both did. But that's not an excuse. She also, whatever. I wouldn't. She's not a candidate for me for sure, but I feel like that people live. They live, man. You can't. Elijah, have you ever seen comments on the stream about Lori? Like when Lori comes to class, I don't even tell Lori about this, man. The shit that people say about her. And you work with Lori, you know how brilliant she is, right? And
when I
heard
see those,
yesterday you guys had a really cool. You watched her. No, it was Tuesday. Yeah, you watched her do her magic yesterday. You were reading her book, and then
oh my goodness, yeah, it's brilliant. And so to see those comments is just, it's wild.
Yeah, and so now these are the same people who are going to be like, no, I'll vote for a woman or a man. That doesn't affect me at all. I'm like, come on, man.
Sam, but a couple years ago, you had a part of a class where you explained that if you were like 5'4" and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
80 pounds and you had a
yeah,
high squeaky voice, you wouldn't be taken seriously. And a lot of people, I'm sure, in the comments and in the classroom might have been like, oh, whatever, like it just matters on your merit. But it
yeah,
totally does because people, like, first and foremost, maybe people don't understand facilitation or the purpose behind
yeah,
when Lori comes to class, although we've
yeah,
tried to explain it. But like when Sam interrupts, people are like, Sam, you should let them talk. But when Lori interrupts, they're like, this is the most worst person to,
awesome,
to listen
horrific
to.
witch.
And yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
the worst
yeah,
descriptions of a person that I've ever read in a comment section. And it's like,
yeah,
you probably don't think you're saying it because she's a woman, but
yeah,
it's got to be at least part of it because just how
dude.
much more severe you're going after it. Maybe it's because she's not Sam and you don't know her as much. There might be other factors in play.
Yeah,
But if you're saying that rate or that gender isn't a factor at all, I would say you're probably missing at least part of the
yeah,
mark.
yeah. Totally missing. Jeff, here's one for you. How about so Matthew, right, in class?
Hmm.
Dude, he's got this a really cool voice, right? It's a strong voice, and like he talks, So here he is. The voice, his voice is very powerful, very melodic, very strong, and he just speaks very matter of factly and very easily, right? He could teach. Imagine he was teaching the class. He had a microphone on him, and he's like moving around in his wheelchair. So how about that?
You know?
Just how about that? Imagine for people. Imagine that it's him, and people would say like, "Oh, no, I would want to, but it'd be something, man." Yeah, yeah. That's a really good example. Yeah. Huh. Anyway, so DEI. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. I do think it mattered. I don't know how much. Um, and for Trump also, right? People. Trump's not physically. He's not a physical, a handsome specimen of a man, even though he thinks he is. That affects him. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like his age affects him. There are people who wouldn't vote for him because of his age, and forget about the fact that he missed the door on the garbage truck, or like his mind slips here and there. He's pretty sharp, man, for his age, and there are people that they see that's their reason. They don't say it, but that comes into play. So
Hmm. And Sam, you're like speaking on like the objectification, right, of like and how film and like media like how it's
yeah,
portrayed, and then like objectification. Like, are you also kind of touching on, you know what I mean? Like when I say
yeah,
objectification or
yeah. No, I
just
think,
of
uh, yeah, I think that no, I think both are in play for sure, uh, all the time. You know, and you got it just doesn't. You
of
know, Kamala Harris is. She was there. She is at her last hurrah. Her final big events, and she's dressing in this kind of way. It's just like it's a big hurt. Women, it's a tough hurdle, man. You get to be 60 years old. She's Lori's age, right? So Lori can get through it in a different kind of way, but man, you are that the spotlight is on you, the criticism, every little thing, man. I don't know what that is. I don't know why it is. Uh, it just wow, man. We being both objectified and subjectified in a different kind of way, but yeah,
Mhm.
get inside of a
Right.
box,
And
man. Kamala Harris, how dare? What are you wearing
it,
those tight jeans for? Trying to look young? It's like, no, man. I'm just trying. I got my
Mhm.
heels on and my boots they got some heel to them. Not a lot, but they're not
Right.
Kardashian heels, but they're heels. And like,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I saw some commentator like, oh, look at her. Like, what do you mean look at her? Like, what, that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's a thing. But in the end, listen, man, in the end, the election came down. I don't think in the end, it's what I said in class yesterday, that there is there's a force in the world and here in the US that is just demanding that we change this, that we respond to neoliberalism in a new kind of way. There are too many people crossing borders. There's too much technology. We are headed into, Web 3.0. We are headed into a world of AI and the metaverse. And everything's about to change, you all. Man, this is not Web 3.0 and AI. This is not, and the metaverse is not about putting these little goggles on. The metaverse is a radical transformation of how people are going to be able to be online. And AI is transforming from top to bottom every institution that we have in this world, man. It is gonna radically alter social life because it's gonna alter labor, all sorts of things, man. People like me, I'm completely relevant. Wait, I have my final statement.
Got it.
And then I want you to respond to this. I want you to ask a question from me. So something is coming along that's really big, this energy force, and is saying human beings, and starting with the United States, you need to change the way you operate together. And that's just empowering this Trump world. Yeah, something. I don't know what it is, man. It's not about ignorance, man. It's not about ignorance, Eric Sell. It's not. It's not. Yeah. It's not even. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I just think that there's something there's a transformation that is happening, and that it needs human beings to really reshape the way we do our world, and that includes nation states and how we interact across borders. And Trump's going to push something that he is pushing something. So, it's not just stop migration or so. That's a symptom of something that's so much greater. Man. Climate change just coming. Yeah, it's so much. Anyway, that's why Trump won. Yeah.
So can you say more on transformation and the transformation? Oh, unless Jeff. Is Jeff coming in?
What's up, buddy?
You? Oh, for some reason, I thought I was hearing something different. I thought you were about to speak. My bad. But when you said,
go ahead.
When you said there's a transformation happening.
Look, here, let me say this. I'm going to go back, right? So I've given in Korea, I've given several talks on AI, Web 3.0 AI. I spoke when I was there 2 weeks ago. I did the opening talk at a metaverse conference, and I'm giving the opening talk at an AI conference in a couple of weeks. And so and I talked about it last time I was there in June. Like, I've been in this world a lot, really trying to understand. And Koreans are really on the cutting edge of robotics and so on. There's no country uses robotics more than Korea. It's number one in the world, right? So they're very much AI, robotics, metaverse, all of this, right? So I've had an opportunity, really taken an opportunity to do a deep dive into where we're headed. And now I do it as a sociologist, right? Not as the technologist, because I'm not a technologist. I don't even play video games, man. I really should. Jeff's always trying to get me to just go online and play video games, right? Call of Duty or whatever. I don't know, right? But I don't even do that. But I'm thinking about this stuff all the time, right? We're moving toward, Web 1.0. The first version was simply just websites were just like the yellow pages of a phone book, right? It says that. Just put your information up there. So you submit it for the yellow pages of a phone book. If you even remember what those are, Elijah. Did you ever have a phone book?
Yeah, I remember. Oh, yeah.
All right, okay. You didn't have the big thick though, I'm sure.
No, it was thick. It was
All
thick.
right. Okay. All right, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so then the web pages where you get a web page and just put on the phone book. I'll put on the web page what was on the phone book, put some photos up there, put a few things, but you don't interact with it. Then 2.0 comes along, you start interacting more. So you can engage, and maybe you put videos up, or you do things where you can click on a button and it takes you here and there and there. And then you see these graphs and you see all sorts of things, and it gets interactive. Then it gets really interactive, right? That's 2.0.
Would that involve like social media as well? Like 2.0?
Yep, all of that.
Is that what you're saying?
And
Okay.
then what happened there?
Hey, quick question. Harris is about to address the nation. Would you want to watch that together?
Oh, how long is it going to
That'd be
be? Do we
cool.
know?
If maybe we watch the first few minutes. If it goes on longer, then we can cut it off. But maybe if we can get her opening remarks when she starts talking, I'll bring it up on stream.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. So 2.0, really was taken over by big internet corporations, man. I mean, this is like they built out, they grew. That's all the big corporations that we see. Like they just got it. And then they decided the on-ramps and off-ramps. So if you want to engage in Web 2.0, you got to sign up with one of these corporations, and they're going to give you the on-ramp and they're going to give you the exits, right? So that's how it works. So you're on the internet highway, but you're on their highway, and these are paid highways, and you're going to pay tolls all along the way. Okay.
You're talking about like Google or like
Google. Yep. All of them. And okay. So here we go. Now you can engage, right? 3.0, the vision for 3.0 is like this is blockchain technologies and stuff, right? Everyone is going to be in their own internet world, right? It's hard to even envision this, right? It's hard to explain it, but I have it in my mind.
What did you see
So
when you were at the okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, everyone's going to be in control of their own on-ramps and off-ramps. And we're going to be in control of the internet and all of our data on the internet are going to be built in these blockchains, whereby like nobody can really control our data except us, and except the other people with whom we give permission to control. And so it's not like the internet is not a place where you just manage human beings and extract money out of them. Okay. So then the issue is, all right, so this is like 3.0. This is a whole different world, right? Okay. Now, so think about like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is built on blockchain. Right. Okay. So, but the other side is that associated with 3.0 is this other thing happening over here, which is that computers are getting so smart that computers can actually take over the role of the human beings. So you got, instead of one mind or two minds, or Google having 500 engineers working on a problem, you got like 500,000 engineers, because you got 500,000 computers working on the problem, and they're working together. And it's like, oh man, this is AI. This is just like, you are going to just be able to do things so fast. And so we're already doing it. We're seeing it, right? But what's happening is AI is being employed in every single industry, man. I was just like reading the story about how oil drilling, right, the wells, like how they're trying to decide, once you start drilling for oil, you depending on how much oil is down there, it's like you got to decide, okay, it's not just how deep you're going to go, but it's like how much force you're going to use when you're sucking the oil out, because that's going to determine how much whether you can extract a great amount or a small amount, because something gets sealed up. And it's like, it's just the layers of complication, but they're employing AI with this. And these computers are making these decisions where human beings used to have to just guess on it. But it's like, whoa, man, like, oh, damn, it's a different world, right? And the metaverse is a place where you simulate human reality all by yourself. So you engage socially in a sociological world, but by yourself. Like you're in it, but you're with other people. I'm in the comfort of my home. You're in the comfort of your home, but you and I walk into the metaverse. There's an alternative reality for us. But the alternative exists out there, but out there is in these computers, and out there is really in our minds. And it's not just about having goggles, man. It's going to go to new levels, right? This is like a whole this is just the very, very beginning, right?
Did they show something? Wow. Did they show?
Yeah, I
something
saw, man. I saw shit. Yeah. I was at this conference. Man, the stuff that's the Koreans they're at another level, right? Because man, the stuff I was seeing, it's like, oh my god.
Can you say anything? Things you've
No, it's
seen, or
just like I watched a guy dance with a virtual character, and he was dancing in the middle of this space, and the virtual character was responding to him, and they did a dance together. The virtual character, man, it didn't exist. Like it's on a 360-degree wall, right? With cameras all around, and they're doing a dance, and I'm watching them, and the virtual character, which is being built by the computers in the moment, is dancing with this guy, man. It's just making up the dance in the moment. And you're just like, whoa, okay, man. This is okay. That's where we're headed, right? Now, you imagine how we going to manage all this, where the Chinese are competing against the US, and the US against Taiwan, and Taiwan against Korea, and Korea against the UK, and the UK against Brazil, and India, and all this kind of stuff. Man, it's a new organization of human social life. And so the old way is not going to work. Neoliberalism, just break the borders down and let everybody do whatever they want. That's not going to work, man. No, put the borders back up, because this shit's really dangerous. Yeah.
What do you see when you say, let's manage this? Oh, Jeff, what's up?
No, I was just going to say there's some people in chat saying that AI is very overrated. And I do think that at the current moment, AI is overrated, but there's a really crazy potential for where this can go. We have to remember Moore's law. Every time that there's an innovation, the next innovation is going to be twice as fast. Think of just technology with television, for instance. People complained, well, we have to have bunny ears on the TV. And now everybody in the United States is required to have an HD antenna if they want to have broadcast television. Most people stream their TV now. We're just making everything so much easier. Same thing with AI. It's just a matter of time.
Here, dude, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I didn't notice that on the stream. Look, man, this is what I want to say. What's going to hold us back a lot is the amount of energy that it takes to run all these computers. I mean, this is very, very, very difficult, right? And so, we're going to have to figure out how to do that without creating all this new CO2 and stuff. But look what we're doing in terms of new energy technologies. Once we got them out from under the oil companies and stuff, we really started investing. Look where we've gone, man, in just 10 years, 15 years. AI is like that, and so is the metaverse. Don't think goggles. This is what I said at this conference, right? I said, don't think you're going to put goggles on and you're going to go into this other space, because I put goggles on. It's not really that interesting. Think 20 years, 30 years down the road. It's a different world, man. You got to envision something that you never imagined. And the same with all of AI. It's not robotics now. It's like, but first off, man, I've been in a factory looking at, and I'm going to another one. I'm actually, when we're in Korea, I'm going to the R&D factory of Hyundai, right? Where the most advanced stuff is. And I'm not going to get to see the most advanced stuff. First off, I got to surrender my phone. Okay. So that's not that, like, I'm not going to be able, Lori and I are going to go with a couple colleagues of ours and surrender our phone and take a walk through there. So when I get back, I'll explain. I'll say a little bit about what I saw. But let me tell you, man, it is what I've already seen, because I was already at one shop, Hyundai shop, and Samsung shop, and whoa, man, yeah, that's all.
And
I'll
so,
say.
you said to them, like when you spoke at the conference, that hey, it's more than God. Like, did you say that? You're saying that you said that at the conference when you were
Oh yeah,
speaking.
totally. No. People got
So
it.
what
These
were
are
you trying to
people.
like?
Yeah.
What were you trying to tell them, or like what were you seeing the
What I
you're
was
seeing the
trying to,
impact of
yeah,
something, and you're like,
yeah. No,
what is?
my job was not to speak as a technologist, right? What they wanted
Mhm.
me to do was to speak as a sociologist. So tell us what you see sociologically. And I said, well, what I see sociologically is these technologies, that where we're headed is going to radically reshape human social life. And most people around the world, most countries are not going to be prepared for that. Korea is
Mhm.
Korea is going to be prepared, because Korea is
Mhm.
be prepared, but you need a
What does that mean
communitarian
to be?
society. Yeah, people need to be able to adjust the way they engage with technologies, right? So, like, first off, because the technologies have the ability to divide people as quickly as bring people together. Look at what the internet has done here, man. This is part of why we're in this mess. Look at all these fake technologies, fake news, fake this, fake that. People just sending shit out there. The Chinese, the Koreans, the Americans on all sides, just sending stuff
Mhm.
out, just pissing people off, man. So Koreans have a very communitarian oriented society. It's a moral order that's very much centered around the importance of other people around them. It's a very monocultural world. Deep people share DNA. 97% of the population. It's like your ancestors were born in Korea. They live in Korea, and that's part of it. So they're Korean. They're Korean. There's no questions.
Wow.
Their
Mhm.
loyalty is with Korea. They eat
And what part of
kimchi, and
that
they love
make?
kimchi. There's nothing. Yeah, it's not a problem. It's a very cool thing. Like, you understand, you get it. And then you have a deep
Mhm.
respect for other people, right? So there are social problems and so on, right? I mean, all sorts of things, but there
Mhm.
is a fundamental connection that people have. Well, Korea will be able to handle this in a way that we never will. I mean, this is
And
just for us an opportunity to,
what about the
yeah.
connection like makes their technological like comfort? What's the
Yeah.
relationship between that? Because I hear you
Well,
saying like as a culture they're very like
yeah.
connected, similar, monocultural, but like
Because
what's
you
the connection with
trust,
the technology?
if you and I are both engaging in this technology, we're
Mhm.
both Korean, let's say. And it's not just Koreans, by the way. I'm just using Korea as an example. You and I are going to both trust that we're going to use the technology for the good of each other. We're not going to harm each other. I'm not going to use it against you, and you're not going to use it against me, because that just would not be a good thing. We don't do that. Right now, people do. People commit crimes, they do all sorts of things, but nothing like here. You have us trust that people are going to, if somebody's speeding on the street in their car, you have a trust that that person's going somewhere. Like, this is what it is. Look, in Korea, there's a law that was passed in 2013 that big box stores, big grocery stores and big box stores, they close every other Sunday or every other weekend. I think it's the whole weekend, actually. And the
Mm.
primary reason they close, and this is nationwide, the nation passed this. These are all Korean stores. This isn't like Walmart. There are no Walmarts over there. These are all Korean stores. The reason they close is because there's an unfair monopoly against the smaller mom and pop stores. And we can't have all these small mom and pop stores go out of business. It's like, people, first off, you big stores, you need to replenish your stock and you need to do all sorts of things. And your employees need a couple of days off. And these other smaller stores, these are Korean stores too. We're all in this together. We're Korean society, right? They need to survive also. And you want them to survive. What do you want to walk down the street and have just empty, boarded up shops anywhere, which you never see? You don't see that anywhere in Seoul. And once in a while, there's a redoing shops, but you don't have neighborhoods of boarded up storefronts and stuff. That doesn't exist, man. So imagine that in the United States, telling the big American box stores, hey, Walmart, you're going to have to close 1 week, 2 weekends a month. Because, downtown, you've destroyed all these other stores. It's like, please, Americans would be pissed. I want to shop at my Walmart. I demand to go to Walmart. Like, I'm not going to shop at this other place. I don't care. That's the thing. That is a communitarian society. You see,
Wow.
they can work this web, this AI that's going to radically disrupt the workforce. Koreans will sit back and they will say, hey, man, this is going to, if we employ this in this way, it's going to throw tens of thousands of people out of work. Now, okay, on one hand, that's a good thing. We need labor. So that means, okay, that's good because we're not having babies. So we need to really use the robotics and AI to make up for the labor force that we're not going to have. But that's not going to be a good idea because that's going to be a problem for society.
Right.
So like, we can't. So they're making thoughts. They're thinking like this. We don't think like that. Ask that. Kamala Harris would say, that's going to be a bad idea because we'll have higher unemployment and we need to fix that. Meanwhile, she's running a deal over here with some big corporation because they're giving the Democratic Party money to run their next campaign, right? Trump would simply say, we don't care. Same thing. Like, that's the nature of it. That's what happens. He'd be taking money too, but Koreans are like, that's just
an interesting thing with some shopping
Wow.
stuff. Shopping centers. I see in the chat people are saying that they're going down a lot, and that's true partly because of what I think Stephen and Green Eyed Lady said. Amazon is one of the reasons,
Totally.
but also there is shoplifting, especially in major cities,
Okay.
that's causing either stores to shut down or
Yeah.
for them to have heightened security, in which people would rather not go and just stay at home and order from their phone and get it in 2 days.
Yeah.
Rather, and in some cities in a couple of hours.
Yeah, I got that.
Then go to the store.
Have it delivered right to my house. I don't have to see anybody.
But there are some havens like in Pennsylvania we have King of Prussia. That's still a pretty thriving shopping center.
No, we have some big malls that really roll here. I was at a mall the one mall outside of Pittsburgh. What a killer mall, man. It's like it's a huge mall. Lori did it was wow, what a really killer mall, man. So yeah, but this is listen, AI will be picking up dog poop, my friend. AI will be fixing the toilet. AI will be doing all sorts of things, and you'll be using that. Really, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
All right, man. Wait, did I?
So the way that.
No,
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Elijah.
Yeah, I'm just perplexed. It's really interesting. So like you just making the connection between the way that Korea is connected, and then so the way that they're able to consider others and like consider problems like together and really look out for everybody in a different way. Than like what you're saying like feels impossible or like not possible right now here. And it's just I'm like I was thinking
It
that
is.
way like with some policies, or just yesterday when I was during a like the watch, but man, it's so interesting. That's profound to me,
Yeah.
The
Well, what happens is, sorry, I had to send something to Igor down in Brazil. I think that. Hang on. I think that what you have to do. Okay. Look, this is the cool thing for me. Like Jeff, like I don't do video games, for example, right? Like I don't. But Jeff's always showing me stuff. He's like, look, watch this person live streaming, and like 100,000 people are watching him play this video game, and I'm just like, come on, that's insane, man. 100,000 people. We're on our channel having a fairly thoughtful conversation. You're just watching this guy shoot up monsters. You know what I mean? Like that makes no sense to me, but it's happening. 100,000 people are watching. He's like, here, pop over to this one. 550,000 people are watching this guy. I'm like, who is this guy? I don't know. He's some 17-year-old kid. Like what? You have to. Your mind. If I could just say that's the stupidest thing in the world, and go off and do whatever I do. My whatever I want. I don't know. Watch Netflix or read a book or plan class, but play golf. Work on my chip shot, my approach shot. But the fact is, my mind, I'm like, whoa, there's something going on that's grabbing people. why do you get 300,000 people watching this kid? I'm watching him. I don't even know what's going on. It's just like, oh no, he's really good. And I'm watching it, and I don't. What do you mean it's really good, Jeff? You should pull one of those up when you get a chance. Pull someone up so people can see what we're talking about, like one of these really excellent gamers. And like, I don't even know what you're looking for, but you got millions and millions of people that are gaming, man. This is professional gaming. This is like a whole different world. And you bet if you can poo-poo it, you can say like, oh, this is stupid, but it's happening. And that's like AI, and it's the same thing. Yeah.
So that you're not looking, are you looking at that as a problem? Like when earlier you were talking about like solutions that Korea had, like with certain developments, or like big box stores and what they'll do, or if AI did come out, they would like regulate it in a way that, are you saying that about like this video game, like this example, you're like 500,000 people are following one person? Are you just saying the profoundness of just technology? And
exactly.
Which
the profoundness that people are really interested in things that we would have, that many of us have no idea they'd be interested in. If we just shut our minds off to it, we miss so much of what's going on. And so AI, the idea is you're going to have to regulate AI. You're going to have to do something. You can't just turn it loose. But we're going to resist that. Well, Trump has started this world. People say like, oh, Trump's for deregulation. Dude, Trump's all about regulation, man. This is what tariffs are. This is what the whole thing, you know what I mean? Like Trump, it's just like, he's going to just regulate it differently. He's about closing the borders. That's regulation. You say, like, no, that's not regulation. Yes, that is regulation. Right? It's just like, don't be very clear about what these things are. Oh man, all right, here we go.
So this is the most popular.
Wait, how many people are watching?
So this is the most popular gaming stream at the moment. It's got 16,000. Everybody, the top streams right now have like 100,000+ are all politics.
Okay, so this guy, he's got 16,000 people watching this guy.
And he's playing League of Legends.
League of Legends. He looks like he's 18 years old, maybe.
Let's see. He's from Sweden. He's 23. His name is Simon.
And how much money is he making, Jeff?
I have no idea.
What do you think?
He doesn't have his subs public.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. But I mean, with 16,000, he's making a lot. He's making more than enough to be a full-time streamer.
Dude, he's making more than I would make, that I would make in 5 years. He makes in probably a couple months. You know?
Probably.
So this is the stuff, right? This is the kind of stuff, and that's like AI. And so we're gonna have to figure it out. It's gonna radically change the world, and we're gonna have to regulate it. And most societies won't be able to do that, but some will, and they'll do it in a way, and the population will accept the regulation in the same way the Koreans say, I can't shop at E-Mart, which is their version of Walmart. I can't shop at E-Mart this weekend because it's closed down. And so I'm going to have to go to some other store where the prices are going to be a little higher. It's going to be less convenient because I got to go to multiple stores, but that's just going to be what it is. And that's for the good of the nation. It's for the good of my community. And why the hell wouldn't we say that? Because we see community differently. It's like community is something that you battle against. You don't work toward. You do it in your small communities, but it's very different. And so it's a small nation, and it's very different sense of what community is. So
wow.
Well, that's what's going to happen. So.
What do we need? Like,
we don't need. There's nothing. We can't. Yeah, we need somebody like a Trump who's going to come in and just crush stuff and just demand and just break it up. Now, the problem is if he breaks it up so much that if the left, like, you know, people are already, I have no idea how people are mobilizing against him already, right? Which is like, okay, I understand that, but at some level, because people won't see what's actually going on, they won't see the deeper meaning of it, and then they're just going to battle in a way that is just, you're going to miss it, right? Actually, I get it. I understand. You know, you're going to fight. You know, it's women's reproduction rights. reproductive rights. That's the single most important thing for you. So you're going to just go after, attack him on that. But it's like, there's so, and I get it. I feel like that. Whatever the issue is, but it's just different.
My headphones popped out, so I missed like the first 10 seconds of what you said.
That's all right. I
Yeah,
didn't
that's
say
fine.
anything of any great.
No,
All right. A lot center left people went against wokeness, like Steven Pinker and Sam Harris and Bill Maher, and even me. Yeah, I definitely went against. So yeah, totally. Yeah, and I still go against them. I said it to the woman the other day. It's like, how do you not fundamentally blame Hamas leadership for what they did and what they continued to do? They know. The Israeli aren't, first off, you have Hamas that says they're not going to rest, they're not going to stop until Israel, it doesn't exist anymore, until all the Jews are out of the land, right? Okay. Well, you've already said that. That's in your proclamation. So you're living by that. You're trying to get as many weapons as possible. You want to, so okay, this is what we're dealing with, right? And now you have this big attack, and we're just like, okay, we're gonna have to stop this because it's just gonna go on and on and on and on, right? And Iran is threatening, I mean, where all the support is coming from, it just goes on. And so the leadership just says, okay, we're gonna go. But the people who are dying are the innocent people. Why aren't people turning to the Hamas leadership? I get critiquing Israel, right? I get that. I get civilian deaths. I get all of that. That's really easy. But then just stop for a second, close your mouth, stop for a second, turn in a different direction, and tell me what you see right there. And what you see is the Hamas leadership hiding away while civilians are being killed for their ideology. And the civilians mostly do not have that same ideology. The vast majority of Palestinians do not want every Jew out of Israel, out of Palestine. They just want to live in peace. But the Hamas leadership is just going like, nah, we're here. And many Palestinians do. But I've met, I don't know, both in Palestine and online in my work and so on. Like, I don't know.
Right. And so you're just like offering, you're telling them like change your look at it from a different position,
Yeah.
Like
I critique that. That's the anti-wokeness thing. Yeah. Yeah. How many times can you tell white people how many times are you going to tell poor white people that they have white privilege? All white people have white privilege, man. And this is Lori said this earlier today. Lori, by the way, Elijah, Jeff knows that most of my most inspirational ideas come from Lori. But it's like, how are you going to just tell poor white people that they have privilege, man? Even they can't even go to the dentist. They don't even have the privilege to have dental insurance to go to the dentist to fix their crooked teeth, like me, because I have the crooked teeth of a poor white guy. I mean, I'm not going to fix them now, and I don't have money to fix them, but I'm not going to do that. And so, like, how are you going to do that? How are you going to tell white people before they finally say, they for a while they did respond back, and then you hammer them even harder, and so then poor white people are like, well, maybe I do have privilege, and maybe I shouldn't say that, and I'm being called a racist now, and then finally you start to say like, wait, can you describe that privilege? What privilege do I have actually? How dare you ask that question? The fact that you can ask that question is indicative of how much privilege you have. It's like, oh my God, wait, you don't have an answer for me? Like, because it's power, because you have power and you have racism, and prejudice with power is racism. And you throw all this stuff around and you entangle it. And like, at some point in time, man, it's just like, no, I'm not going to.
At some point in time, what?
I just going to stop and be like, I'm not going to buy that. And Donald Trump comes along and he tells me, dude, don't listen to that bullshit. Like, this is silly. This is inanity. And like, I get this white guy who's like telling me I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm cool. Just as I am, man. I'm cool. Yeah, he's a billionaire, but whatever. He's a guy. He's telling me I'm all right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
mm-hmm. So there's like all these truths.
Go ahead. Yeah.
There's all these truths competing with each other,
Exactly.
and then it's like voices are silenced. It's so interesting. Like what happened? So okay, what do we do after that? I guess it's like with
Well,
these.
what you do is deal with the consequences, and the consequences are that now you're gonna live with Donald Trump, y'all, right? So, and you're gonna live with a bunch of people who you've been condemning with your just bigotry, right? Because there's a fair amount of, not across the board. I'm not talking across the board, man. Look, a lot of white people have, there's a privilege that white people have that is like, man, you gotta be white in this world, in this culture for sure, in the world. And I have privilege in Korea because I'm white. I mean, it's just on and on. There are privileges, but man, it's nuanced. Sometimes it's very clear, and sometimes it's very nuanced. And you got to know when it's clear and when it's nuanced. And you got to be able to move back and forth in between those. And you got to know when to call it and when not to call it. And if you don't do that, then you start losing it. Well, people can't be very nuanced. You know what I mean? Like most people can't be very nuanced about the things that really matter. And so,
Yeah, it's interesting because like when you say nuance, and then because like when you say nuance, for some reason I was thinking about shared experience, like in
yeah,
ways like things are like when there's nuance, there's like more layers,
yeah.
or um, I'm not sure if I'm saying that, but like, and then when it's like oh my goodness, I just lost it, but I lost it, Sam.
No, but
But
listen, no, but it's shared layers, right? So it's like me saying,
oh
like, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. So with the nuance, and then for those where there's not nuance, it's like there's got to be a sense of like mediating or like having humility, like places like humility, right? Or
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah,
acknowledging like your own positionality,
yep,
like, and
yep.
then but then like there's nuance and sometimes where like that positionality can be like
Well, here, let me give you an example, right? If you really understood, I mean,
or
but people really understood my childhood, right? I mean, it was, my dad, before my dad died, I mean, my mom and dad bought a house. It was, it's a working class neighborhood. It's fine. It's fine, fine house, right? But they bought a house. They had money to buy a house, right? Okay, so partly because they were white. I mean, if they were at the same class level, well, they wouldn't have done. My dad was a traveling salesman and he worked in a factory. He did like all sorts of stuff. I mean, my God, it's just like their whiteness really was instrumental. But, then I had uh, but it was tough, man. We had some tough times, right? And so I can lean on that and I can just point out all the really difficult times and all the places where I had to make decisions on my own and I had to do things on my own and I didn't get help from anybody, et cetera, et cetera. Or I can look and I can say, well, but hang on, let me look at different places where my what it didn't get me. I'm not, I didn't get to Barron Trump status, right? But like but I benefited. That definitely benefited. Yeah, benefited from having a house. We weren't renters. Um, yeah, in a neighborhood that we didn't pay really high taxes. I mean, it was so it's the nuance of that, right? You see, like you got to hold different positions all the time. You know.
and you have to have like that just that aware acknowledgement and like awareness, like
Yeah,
that's so beneficial, right?
it's so difficult, man. It's so difficult because you got to spin. That's what makes teaching in Social 118 so difficult sometimes, right? Because I have to just jump in and make a point, but then I got to back up and say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait, hang on." Man, I need to make this whole other point over here too. So what happens is after class, students come up and say, "Hey, you said that thing about X, but you didn't say the other point about Y, And I'm like, man. Like, for example, I critiqued Christian nationalism the other day, but the whole purpose of bringing up Christian nationalism because I was going to critique Sharia law and like radical Islam. That was the whole purpose of the class. I started out that whole class to have a conversation, like a critical conversation about radical Islam. And then we started down that line, and I get the people who are up in the front, I'm like, oh man, I can't I can't put you on the spot like the way I would if you were other people, if you were like really stronger or something. Like I had some things I wanted to really put them on the spot. Not in a bad way, but I just was like, hey, can you just explain this to me as a Muslim, man? Knowing that they were like, I what do you mean as a Muslim, man? I'm just trying to figure out. I just want to go hang out with my buddies tonight and play video games, man. I'm not going to be praying, reading the Quran, talking. I had none of that, man. I just want to, I know I'm Muslim, but I just want to go play video games. What are you asking me these questions? I know I don't think about this shit. I never think about radical Muslims. I think about playing video games with my friends. You know what I mean? I don't care at all about Christians, Jews, Israel, nothing. I don't fuck. So I couldn't go there. Well, then what happened was we sort of started in this world of looking at radical, like Christian nationalism, who are the radical Islamists of Christianity. But I never made it back to radical Islam. And so people were in the chat and in the chat of the recording are like, dude, like you completely passed that by. And I'm like, I know, but I just didn't get back. I couldn't get back to it. I got sidetracked and like, oh, you did that on purpose. Like you did that on purpose. Like you didn't want to condemn Islam. This is how you are. Right. And I'm like, no, you have no idea, man. The whole thing came out of that. I watched these Muslims doing this in Sweden. They were protesting against this Swedish politician who was burning the Quran. And I'm like, are you guys protesting against like Muslims who are attacking Swedes? You know what I mean? Or like Muslims who are ISIS supporters who are attacking innocent civilians in Germany? And why are you protesting them? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Why are you just protesting this guy like burning the Quran? Protest this other stuff, man. So, but they weren't, but they do sometimes, but you know what I mean? But not in the same numbers. So I'm like, that was where I really wanted to go, but I didn't get back to it. So anyway,
like, and you're
hard anyway, because the 3 students who were up there, they weren't ready for that. Yeah.
Because like, and you were just showing again, like the other side, like you're like, look at this, like we're talking about this, but also look at this,
Yeah.
or
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where I'm severely lacking in research, by the way. Dexter's Lure Lab.
I would like, and then the next comment is Christians don't do what Muslims committed on October 7th, and that might be true, especially for today.
Wait, what happened? What's the thing?
The October 7th, the massacre that happened at the music festival, and then the attack within Israel.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it would be an equivalency, so don't say it's the same. But the only thing that I could bring to a forefront that Christians have done in recent history is the Lord's Resistance Army. So I would just,
I don't. Yeah, look, we're at a period of time right now where Christians aren't the ones. Well, there are other. It's not just Lord's Resistance Army. There are other Christian militia groups,
and even though that they're there, they're there, but they might not be as big in terms of their impact or death toll or horrendousness potentially.
No,
sure. But we can't ignore the fact that they do exist. They are there.
Yeah. Listen, we happen to be at a period of time when it happens to be radical Muslims, right? Go back to when I was a kid. It wasn't until Palestinians took the road of violence against Israel that against the road of terrorist violence, meaning like attacking civilians. It wasn't until then that anybody really heard about there was any serious Muslim violence against civilians in any way. I mean, it just wasn't happening in any serious way. Okay, so this is not an ongoing thing. This is a new thing, which means in certain eras we see certain things happen. It rises up in one group and down another. Hindus, for example, man, the radical, extremist Hindus have killed tens of thousands of Muslims and Christians, mostly Muslims, right? And hundreds of thousands over the past, 25 years. But before that, we didn't see it in the same way. I mean, we did when India got its independence and separated. We saw the division of India and Pakistan, and then also Bangladesh. But no, it's a period of time, man. These are all timely things. So yeah, you can't deny that Muslims right now are like, whoa, man, dude, what are you guys doing? But that has not been historically true. And Christians, obviously all of the battles and the 100 million people dying and all the battles by Christians. So like, all right, but not simply because of Christianity, not in the same way that we're seeing like with ISIS and so on. Anyway, so yeah, that's fair. I don't have that. It's just like, that's the thing. I don't have any problem with that. I'm quite critical of it. And it's not that we haven't seen battles between Christians and Muslims for, the past, millennia and a half. We do see that, but not in the same way that we see this kind of what we're seeing today. I mean, we've always had terrorism in certain ways, right? But I'm talking about it's just something unique that we're seeing today. This wanton violence. Yeah. To make some strange, bizarre political point. There's nothing to do with the population of people that you're committing violence against. All right, man. Yeah.
Harris was supposed to speak at 4:00. It is now 4:19, and she is yet to take stage. So
yeah, she's still trying to figure out what she's gonna say, man. She's still trying to get the shock off her face. Yeah. Hey, Ricard, your comment about being a secular Swede, you almost had a heart attack at the notion of the Quran being enough to replace the law book. Yeah, no kidding, man. Well, this is this is Christian nationalism here in this country, right? How are we going to use the New Testament to do what? Wait, hang on. Or let's just use the Bible. So let's include the Old Testament. What are we going to do here? How are we going to work that out? Like how are we going to? We can't have a state religion. So how are we going to make this happen? It gives me like the heebie-jeebies, actually. Yeah. So I don't know. All right. Do we have any other? Now, in the Christian identity movement, it has really nothing to do with Christian nationalism of today. That's really just emerges out of the clam, which emerges out of the people who just were all Southern Christians. They just happened to be Christians, and so that decided they were going to build an ideology around racism. All right. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, give me one moment.
All right, man. Listen, Christian nationalists are both actually, strangely enough. So I'm responding to Mikhail. There's a whole movement in the Catholic Church of Christian nationalists, man. And people in the Catholic Church who are working together with the Protestant. Christian nationalism is a movement among Protestants primarily, right? But there's a whole Catholic Church movement of like these really wealthy and powerful Catholics working behind the scenes to undermine the power of the Vatican now, because in the Vatican we have a leftist pope who's quite progressive, and they need to reduce his power as much as possible, and to align themselves more closely with the Protestant Christian nationalists. So yeah, it's all within the dominant denomination. It doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Right. Oh yeah, just Argentinian. Yeah, you're right. Okay, hang on. Yeah, hang on. You're right. Look, first off, I don't see the current pope, as being very left. He's left in a very complex way. Some things he's left on, and some things he's actually still pretty traditional and conservative. But he's definitely, maybe that's an Argentinian thing. I don't know, but it's not super left, and definitely not left in the same way as Jeff. Can you put up that slide? If you go to our slides, or did you have a question that you were going to put up that you did put up and then you didn't?
I know what slide you're talking about. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Elijah, let me take a look at this. I'll walk you through this. You know, when I was making, you know, kind of a joke the other day about, you know, about converting to Islam accidentally. I might talk about that. It's a great story. It's a cool story, actually. It's really, really cool. It was a very cool experience. But this is Christianity for me, right? So when I was this guy, Gustavo Gutierrez, he brought me back into Christianity. And after I had just given up and just declared myself an atheist, but I read his work. Now that's not his work there. His work was this book on liberation theology, okay, which I didn't put up. But Teología de la Liberación but it's just liberation theology, right? But you can look it up. He really coined the term and pushed the term forward. And this is about a preferential option of the poor. What they did was they reinterpreted the life of Christ and the thinking of Christ along the lines of Christ, the Redeemer, and Christ, the person who stood up for the poor. In other words, Christ, the communist. So this guy lived in communities like this. Now, I spent several nights in houses like that. Okay. There's nothing in that house. It is just as difficult living as you can imagine. Okay, this is the Latin America in which Gustavo Gutierrez, who, you know, and this all started in the late 50s and early 60s, and other priests and nuns started to look around and see people living like that, and they said, "This is not what Christ." This isn't what God wants. This is not what Christ would have settled for. Christ would not want us to be on the side of the rich and the powerful. Christ would want us to be on the side of the poor because Christ supported the poor. Blessed are the poor. Best, you know, always helping the poor, feed the poor, take care of the poor, house the poor. Right. So that's the message. What they did was they reached inside the Bible and they took that Christ the Redeemer message out and they started extracting that, because there's also different messages in the Bible, right? But they pulled all of those out and they reshaped Christian thinking, Christian theology according to this liberationist doctrine, which is liberate the poor from their misery, man. Here we go. We'll come back to that. Wait, she's going to have to say hi for...
Yeah, I was going to say keep talking, and then once she starts actually speaking, I'll turn it up.
So anyway... All right, go ahead. Let's hear what she has to say. Well, at least they're cheering her on as though she won. That's important, man. It's got to feel terrible for her.
She's at her alma mater.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's got to be hard, man.
Good afternoon.
Really, really difficult. I mean, I feel for any candidate who loses like that.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let me say, and I love you back. And I love you back. So let me say, my heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright.
Okay, that's good.
As long as we never give up and as long as we keep fighting.
Okay, hang on.
To my beloved Doug and our family, I love you so very much. To President Biden and Dr. Biden, thank you for your faith and support. To Governor Walz and the Walz family, I know your service to our nation will continue. And to my extraordinary team, to the volunteers who gave so much of themselves, to the poll workers and the local election officials, I thank you all. Look, I am so proud of the race we ran and the way we ran it. And the way we ran it. Over the 107 days of this campaign, we have been intentional about building community and building coalitions, bringing people together from every walk of life and background, united by love of country with enthusiasm and joy in our fight for America's future. And we did it with the knowledge that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. Now, I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
That's a big statement right there.
A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept
It shouldn't
the
be,
results.
but it is.
That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it. At the same time, in our nation, we owe loyalty not to a president or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States.
See, that's a brilliant statement right there. Yeah.
And loyalty to our conscience and to our God. My allegiance to all three is why I am here to say, while I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. The fight for freedom, for opportunity, for fairness, and the dignity of all people. A fight for the ideals at the heart of our nation, the ideals that reflect America at our best. That is a fight I will never give up.
Yeah, that's fair.
I will
That's
never
a
give
fair
up
statement.
the fight for a future where Americans can pursue their dreams, ambitions, and aspirations, where the women of America have the freedom to make decisions about their own body and not have their government telling them what to do. We will never give up the fight to protect our schools and our streets from gun violence. And America, we will never give up the fight for our democracy, for the rule of law, for equal justice, and for the sacred idea that every one of us, no matter who we are or where we start out, has certain fundamental rights and freedoms that must be respected and upheld. And we will continue to wage this fight in the voting booth, in the courts, and in the public square. And we will also wage it in quieter ways, in how we live our lives, by treating one another with kindness and respect, by looking in the face of a stranger and seeing a neighbor, by always using our strength to lift people up, to fight for the dignity that all people deserve. The fight for our freedom will take hard work, but like I always say, we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work can be joyful work. And the fight for our country is always worth it. It is always worth it.
Yeah, she's not following a script here. It doesn't seem like
To the young people who
Maybe
are
she is.
watching, it is.
She does have two prompters in front of her.
Yeah.
To the young people who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed, but please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. You have power. And don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before. You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. And so to everyone who is watching, do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. This is a time to organize, to mobilize, and to stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together. Look, many of you know I started out as a prosecutor, and throughout my career, I saw people at some of the worst times in their lives. People who had suffered great harm and great pain, and yet found within themselves the strength and the courage and the resolve to take the stand, to take a stand, to fight for justice, to fight for themselves, to fight for others. So let their courage be our inspiration. Let their determination be our charge. And I'll close with this. There's an adage an historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service.
You want to cut it off here?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long she's going to go, but it sounds fairly optimistic. I mean,
Yeah, dude. Listen, man, here's my first thought, right? Trump First off, Trump never would have conceded. Trump would be attacking and saying, I lost. They stole this from me, and now you got to go fight. Fight would be very different. And Trump would be saying, fight. She's talking about fighting metaphorically, like fighting to pass laws and organizing and so on. And she's not, there's no hidden message in her. She's not subtly saying, get your guns out and go mobilize. He would have been, man. Like, it's just not the get your guns out and stuff, but his fight, there would be an edge to it, and he knows who his audience is. He knows who these people are, man. It's not all people, but he knows within his, the people who would be listening would be these people who would be very happy to take their guns out, right? And she's not sending these little subtle messages out to folks to go out and riot in the streets and do whatever. Like, she's not doing that. So, like, I give her a lot of credit for that. And I think Trump supporters, and if there are any on here, and I think there probably are, you got to give her credit for that. And you got to, just like I said the other day, you can't think about some of these things that Trump has done and things that he said and make excuses for him. They're truly just atrocious. Some of that, and you got to also see that what would be happening in a different way. And so you got to give her credit for really pushing that message. And I think, Trump will be calling for war, man. A different kind. Anyway, but the one thing she did say, a couple of things I wrote down, is like, she's like, well, we're going to fight for the we're in America where Americans can pursue their dreams. Well, that's what Trump is fighting for. And he's saying the same damn, everything that she said, the Trump campaign is making the same statement, right? We're going to fight to protect our schools. That's what Trump campaign is fighting for. The other side is fighting for, right? Protect our streets. And that's what the other side is fighting for. And so this is the thing. It's where we're really, so many people we're on the same, we have to use the same rhetoric, but not seeing that, well, the other side just sees it a little bit different. Like, everyone has fundamental rights regardless of where they start. Well, that's what people who are against abortion say. Everyone does. They start as fetuses. And so we start as two cells. We come together and we start, and a human being is born out of that. And so everyone has fundamental rights, the right the right to be born. And so, when I hear that, and I step in the shoes of somebody who is against abortion at all costs, I think, well, that's exactly what they would say. And so I think that her message, all in all, was awesome. It's awesome for what it is. It's a very difficult thing to do. But, at the same time, we have to see that, it's a message that can be played many ways. But I liked what she was saying about look at each other with kindness and respect. Well, that's quite awesome, actually. There were a few boos, but not that many, really. I think that was cool. It's good. Makes me feel.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, it makes, because like within this speech, I'm thinking about just like Laurie's book is at the top of my mind right now.
Yeah.
So it's just like, but it makes me think about like we're in the paradigm of like us and them, and it's I'm like man, it's like, how do we still get to like that paradigm of like where Korea's at, of just like including all positions?
Yeah. I don't know, man.
It seems still like pushed, like, even though like you're saying Kamala's speech, like you're saying you see good things, and I was doing the same thing, and and then like you see moments of like be respect and kind, and even though you're saying that Kamala's not trying to like incite or like have hidden messages, just the terminology of like fight or like, it makes me think about and like, if, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Just like,
here, let me say this. I want to respond to Green Eyed Lady. No, I'm not saying he would be calling for armed conflict. This is a thing with Trump, right? He would be doing, first off, he'd be inciting people, right? So you're not calling for armed conflict, but you're inciting, he'd be inciting people. And he'd be, so Green Eyed Lady, he'd be going like, they stole the election from us. They stole it from you. And that's how, and then just one after another, and just ramping people up. And when you ramp people up, who we know the consequences of that, then we know that things are going to happen, right? And so it would be, and especially after January 6th, and especially we know how many militia groups have been mobilizing. So I read this article, like the FBI, man, all the national security apparatus has been just tracking on Telegram all of the ways in which people are mobilizing, man. They got their weapons ready. They got their this, they got their that. We know that. And Trump knows that. And they're trying to get him to tone down the rhetoric a little bit. Like, dude, we don't need a civil war. And so if you go back to January 6th in 2021, they were trying to get him to tone down the rhetoric a little, and he wouldn't. And he knew what he was doing. And he just incited in people, go down there and take over the building. And you can't deny that. Like, it's very clear. And so for me, that's the danger. And he clearly won. But the Democrats don't have that narrative of stolen election. And neither did the Republicans, by the way, until Trump brought it up. It's never been an issue because that's not going on here. We don't have people stealing elections in any larger sense. It's not happening in the US. Our elections are just incredibly secure. And so, yeah.
I do want to jump in and say that Trump never said to take over the building. But what Sam is trying to say is the implication after all of the speeches, not just on January 6th, but the months between January and even way back in 2016 when he claimed that election was also rigged because he should have won by more. That's just what he does. He doesn't have to say go and storm the Capitol. For months and months and months, he's been building up this us against them mentality that was taken up a whole nother notch. And then people were already at the Capitol when he was still doing his speech. They were listening to what he was saying. And then when he said to go to the Capitol, that's when they started breaking into the Capitol. He didn't say to break in, but that's what. No,
I never said any of that. That's not what it is. You hype people up, man. And you know what group you're hyping up. And they were very clear about that. And so, like, I don't, it's like, look, man, leaders have a responsibility, and they have a responsibility to know when things are going to get really dangerous, and when they're going to get dangerous, you tone it down, and that's the nature of it. And so, like, I don't know why, like, look, I don't have a problem with like Trumpism, and I don't know, I'm giving way to this idea that it's pretty clear that Trump has a role here, and that he's in this place to play some kind of role to realign and do something with the system. But along the way, he's walking in some very, very dangerous territory, and one is that. So yeah, it's just like, no. So yeah, it's not take over it's not that. Okay, so I Jeff, I'm with you. I misspoke there, but it's hyping people up and go down, People weren't, it's just
the thing is, he could also, when you are a person who doesn't implicitly, like explicitly tell people, but you're implicitly laying those seeds for months and months and months, is then you can say peacefully, and then people will be able to just attach every single thing you've said to that word peacefully. Well, he meant to do it peacefully, when the entire intention from the Eastman memos and from everything else that Trump has been doing for at least months prior to January 6th, he knew what would happen when those people were doing it. And then, I'm starting to go
And
too
when-
far. But
and then
but when they were doing it, he didn't do anything for hours.
I didn't do anything for hours, man.
It's
Like,
3
come
hours.
on. Like, what are the Trump people? Are those of you on the stream? Are you going to take? Is he not responsible for that? He sat around for 2 hours, sat on his hands, or
According
3
to
hours.
official statements from his daughter under oath of perjury, she said
Yeah.
that during those 3 hours, her and his aides were asking him to call off the protesters, and instead him, Giuliani, and Eastman were calling congressmen and saying, hey, it's getting kind of crazy out here, maybe we should delay this certification. And that was his whole thing, was trying to add confusion. That's like
Yeah.
the whole thing on January 6th. But hey, it doesn't matter. His excuse wasn't I'm not guilty. His excuse is I need presidential immunity, which the Supreme Court then gave him.
Dude, it's just like him going after the the guy in Georgia telling him, I need 7,000 votes or whatever it is. Like, come on, man. If that had been Obama, if you heard Obama on a tape or Hillary Clinton on a tape cajoling somebody, the director of whoever he was of elections in the state of Georgia or somewhere else, like, that, oh, you not got to find me 7,000 votes. You would be like, oh, okay, that's just Hillary. Or if that had been Hillary sitting on her, or Barack, let's go back. It's Barack Obama. He's just sitting on his hands while people are breaking into the Capitol building, beating up police officers. And they told Barack Obama, like, listen, man, dude, this is going on. You got to like tell these people that you've all hyped up. You brought them here for this big rally, and like, you got to like tell them to chill the F out. You would say like, no, Barack Obama, no, that's not his responsibility. You just got to turn it around like that. And would you say the same thing? And if you did that, if you're going to say that, then like, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I would have said that Hillary wasn't responsible either at all for if she was in the exact same position. Come on, man. I'm just willing to
Hillary, and I also,
sides.
a person said that Hillary said it was stolen. She said she gave up that night. She said that he won.
She gave up that night, dude.
That night. Harris took more time this election to give up on the election, to say, hey, we need to say that this is, everything's good. We will help the next administration come in. It took more time for Harris to do it than Clinton to do it.
Yeah, come on.
She called him an illegitimate president. Like, how many times has Trump said mean things, mean tweets? That's like been the whole slogan for the past 4 years. I'd rather have mean tweets. Like, hello,
dude. The whole thing is if you can support, you can be a Trump person. I'm cool with that. There are lots of I gave a bunch yesterday in class. I gave a huge analysis. I was a tiny one because I didn't have a lot of time, but I gave a bigger one here earlier today. Like, that's fine. You can do that. I can make a really strong case for Donald Trump, man. I don't have an issue with that. But come on, man. You cannot there's certain things you have to ask yourself. If this had been a Democrat, if this was Biden or Harris or Hillary or Barack or any of them, right? Would I cut him the same slack that I cut Donald Trump? And I'm going to say absolutely not, man. Yeah, well, just ask yourself that. I'm not going to answer for you. Yeah, that they were headed down there to it's just a silly. Yeah, I don't buy that. Yeah, but I'm not saying. But that doesn't mean that Trump is like. That's not to say he doesn't have a role of some sort. He got a role, like, he does have a role, and it's like, it's not to say that it can very easily turn out that we'll look back in 20 years and be like, man, thank God Trump got elected at that point in time. That was a critical point in time, and yep, it's really good. Thank God all that stuff happened. That it actually, if you look at the timeline of it, it worked out really well, and it had to fit in place. And historians will look back and they'll say, like, yeah, that's pretty fascinating and pretty instrumental, right?
Mm.
So I don't know what else I could do to bend over backwards. Like, what am I going to do, right? At some level, the guy's not responsible for anything. It's like, come on, man. That's just nonsense. Just like I'm responsible for stuff. So That's where I draw my own lines in that way. So
interesting. It's like, do you mind if I
wait,
stay-
Ari,
yeah.
so hang on. Agricola eggs. So I'm assuming you're talking to me. Am I ignorant of what happened, or purposefully misrepresenting what happened? So what happened? A bunch of people gathered.
I think
for a
they're
Trump
talking about.
rally.
There's a chance that this person is talking about the Clinton
All right.
conceding that night. There was that one statement that Clinton made. I don't remember exactly when it was made, but I do know that night she did concede in 2016. That the night of 2016, I remember where I was when everybody at the gathering I was at realized that Trump was going to be president, and I was with a bunch of lefties who were all very upset, and I was like, all right, he won. Yeah. Time to move forward. And she did the same thing. Harris did right now.
Yeah. Listen, man, everyone in politics, look, it's like you lie. Yeah, sure. Politics is about making promises, and you make promises that you know you can't keep. And so we can say like, don't you cannot say that. Like, that's just like, it becomes a lie. It's just, in fact, when politicians lie, it's almost like they're not lying. They're just speaking, And so, but that's the nature of it. That's how it works. Right. But sometimes politicians in certain positions of power also use that power in very troubling ways. Okay. So, and that's what I'm calling out here. All right. So, and Democrats have used their power in very troubling ways. And what I will say with Kamala Harris right here is she didn't hype people up, man. She could have hyped up at the end where she's saying, well, when times are really dark, she could have come out and she could have said, listen, these are the darkest times that the United States have ever known. And you got to mobilize together because this man is going to destroy everything about the United States. And so what I want you to do is mobilize against him, get out on the streets and fight. And we're going to take this country back. We got 4 years here, but we're going to wait. In 2 years, we're going to have elections again, and we're going to take it back, and we're going to make it happen. She could have gone that route, and she didn't do that. And thank God that she didn't, man. But she could have gone that route. So I will say that. I give her credit for it. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
There was a question from Jimmy earlier in the class where he asked about pretty much like, can Republicans revel in their win? And my response to that is you could. You have the, you're an American, you have the right to do to do that. I would hope that the Democrats would be in a position, and the Republicans would also be in the position where after the election is over, it's about trying to now get our next government prepared and work together, hopefully, to pass legislation. Yeah. Republicans do have a majority in the Senate. They probably will have a majority in the House. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all the legislation is going to be easy to pass. Trump also had a majority when he was president for his first 2 years in 2016. So, like, there's a chance that nothing can happen. There's a chance that a lot of things could happen. We just have to wait and see what happens.
Trump could have pushed things a lot harder than he did in his first 4 years. Some of it, I think, is because he just gets distracted. Like what I said yesterday, man. What I just keep reading and hearing about him from people is like, we just tell him, okay, we'll take care of that, and then they don't. And so then he goes off and plays golf or whatever he does, right? So some of it is that. But he really could have pushed things a lot harder than he did. People are now afraid, like, oh my God, he's got, this guy, he's all about revenge. He's going to just attack. He's going to go after things, and we're going to be in a fascist state. I'm like, no, I don't think so. And I don't think it helps to be saying that. That's the side on the left. That's more of like, a similar thing. It's like Trump exciting people to, fight in a different kind of way than we all know. Harris, we listen to Harris. She's not saying go get your guns and fight. We know that, man. And she knows that's not who's listening to her anyway. It doesn't matter. So, but, and Trump's not deliberately saying go get your guns. He's not saying that. He just knows his audience, man. And you gotta, I read there's the piece where all the national security agencies they've been tracking for months, Telegram, where all of the more extremist groups are operating. Man, there is so much happening on Telegram, so much happening, and so much mobilization happening. Man, people being prepared, and you gotta, if you're not following that, y'all who are on the stream, go follow that, go look into it, because it's really dangerous, man. So don't just say that I'm crazy and I'm making, like, it's serious. It scares me. And by the way, with AZ, I think that Kamala, in a way, the Democrats really are emboldened by the military industrial complex, for sure. And so are the Republicans. But in an odd way, Trump isn't so much. It's very strange. That's not the thing for Trump. It is for the Republicans, but he doesn't. It's a very odd thing. Trump when it comes to war and militaries, Trump he talks like off the cuff in these ways that really kind of, I'm like, dude, did you really just say that? But man, there's something about him. He's not in the same category. I don't know. I don't mean that categorically in like a big sense, but there's something about him that when you say that, like, it's the military. Yeah. Well, the reason it's so strange is because it's not so strange because he's a populist, so he doesn't have to be in the center of his party. And power, the military industrial complex, it really is a very important source of power for both of the parties. So, but Trump doesn't have that in the same way. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Paul, what is the misinformation here? Because clearly, you give me like one thing. Take your time and type it out. Because clearly, yeah.
Big fan of comedy said Trump will end both wars. That's a real possibility. He could end both wars. The question is, how do we want to end these wars? How does the United States want to stop existing in either one of these wars? And what are the huge impacts after that? I mean, could he just pull out entirely? Sure, he could.
Well, yeah. No, someone asked, a student asked me in class yesterday, like, that last question, right? Who's more likely to end both wars? And I said, well, Trump is, not Harris. Like, Trump is. He's gonna end that. Look, it's like the Ukraine war, right? It's kind of like, well, if Trump, I mean, you can make the argument that if he just didn't start the war, man, think how many human beings would still be alive, how many homes and lives would not be destroyed. Yeah, okay, and then that whole region of Ukraine, and I don't know exactly what the region would be. Yeah, be living under Russian rule, but I could think of a lot worse things than living under Russian rule. One would be to have my whole community and nation disappear from bombs and have people all around me die from war. I could think that would be a whole hell of a lot worse. So in retrospect, yeah, just like avoid the war. Just like, okay, Russia, here, go, do your thing. So anyway, I mean, this is a hard thing, man. War is war. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, this is all right, Paul, I hear you. Anyway, it's tough, man. I'm happy that she did the message she did, because it could have been a really, really a message where I would have just been like, oh, come on, just stop, man, stop. You're just inciting people now, and that's a problem. So I'm happy for that. All right. Okay. What else do we have? I never finished my thing about God. Oh, Gustavo Gutierrez. So anyway, the when I think about Christianity, I think my re-entry into Christianity is liberation theology. It is that, and I recognize that there are multiple Jesuses, but one Jesus is a Jesus, the liberator, the Jesus who really stood up for the poor and the oppressed. That's just part of you can pull that stuff out of the Gospels. It's not very difficult to do, and that's what all of these theologians did. This liberation theologians. So I went into Latin America to study this, and I spent 5 years, 7 years studying liberation theology, traveling back and forth in Latin America and living with priests and nuns and in communities like this, like people are living like that. And when you live among, you have people living in homes like that compared to people living in big mansions, compared to priests and bishops living in also really big mansions. You have these other priests that came along and said, I just don't think that this is what God wants. Doesn't want people to suffer like this, really suffer. Of course, the United States in our foreign policy, we sided with those with money, not with those with poor. So when the poor decided that they were to really follow the priests, then they became labeled communists and socialists. And so then a lot of these priests were killed. They were killed by their own governments. They were killed by the United States. They were killed with weapons supplied by the United States to their governments to kill them because they were mobilizing the poor. And they were, imagine mobilizing. See those two kids in that photo? Imagine the parents, the family lives in that home, and the priest comes along and is trying to, help them to really, to these base communities, to really conscientize them, to like, hey, you need education and birth control and food and this and that, and like, let's make sure that you feel a sense of dignity, and and mobilizing the whole neighborhood of people so that they work together to improve their conditions together. And like, but the people in power don't do that. You're mobilizing people. That's like a trade unionist communist thing. And they're like, dude, we're just want them to work together to improve their lives. So anyway, this is how I returned to Christianity. And so that book right there, Creation Spirituality, is a book that I used in Social 19 one time, the liberating gifts for the peoples of the earth. Right. So like, I got in trouble for using a Christian book in the Social 19 class. They're like, what does this have to do with Social 19? And I'm like, no, it has a lot to do with Social 19 when you read it. You don't have to be Christian. I talked to the students who were Jewish and Muslim and Hindu and stuff, and I said, this will help you to understand a Christian vision and what I considered to be the best of what Christianity had to offer. And anyway, so yeah, imagine that. So this guy, Matthew Fox, is a very different person, but really awesome, also a really beautiful human being. The point is, Gustavo Gutierrez died 10 days ago. And so that's how it came to mind, because he just died. And he was, one of my heroes. Yeah. Yeah. The first book that completely changed my life. Yeah. When I read that. That sent me on a journey into Latin America. And yeah. Well, here's the thing. Jesus didn't come to feed the poor. What you have to do is, if you read this, get the book Liberation Theology, or read some of these books and see how they extracted ideas out of the Gospels as a way to provide a liberationist narrative to the poorest of the poor in the world. Okay? The poorest of the poor. A liberationist narrative, meaning like a narrative that you have value, you have worth. we support you. You deserve food. You deserve clothing for your children. You deserve a roof over your head. You deserve to send your children to school. You deserve a job. You deserve fair wages. You deserve to not starve. God wants that of you. Jesus wants that of you. It doesn't take a lot, AZ, to go into the Gospels and pick out the pieces that would provide a narrative for the poorest of the poor in the world. And that's what liberation theology did. And so it's very cool, man. And if you were around the poorest of the poor, if you spent as much time and been in some of those houses and slept in a house like that house, you'd be like, man, the work that these Christians are doing is unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable. So they've been my heroes. They were my heroes. So when I think about Christianity, and I think about people who are, I don't know what some of this Christian nationalism stuff that seems to be just like calling for a culture war. I don't know what people are, the stuff. And I think about liberation theologians and the people working in this area and the work that they did and the people who I knew and the beautiful souls, man. That's where I put my attention. That's Christianity for me. Yeah. So people have a lot of negative viewpoints of all religions, right? Like in Islam, I don't think about radical Islam. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the West, that's all we know about Islam are the radicals. And I know amazing, beautiful Muslims. And so I don't think about the radicals. Yeah. I think about the 99% of Muslims. Well, first off, 80%, I don't know what percent of Muslims who are just Muslims because they were Muslims, man. Everybody else does every day, just get on with their lives. But I think about people who are really take it seriously and are doing some great work. Yeah. So, and same with Christians. So, anyway, sometimes people question my support of Christianity because because they don't know, people don't know I have this history with Christianity, and then they feel like I don't give, I don't know, like I'm just too critiquing of Christianity or something. I don't know. I don't.
I might be saying this the wrong way, but like the difference between like theologian or liberation theology and like the Christianity that's like that maybe we're seeing on the media or just like
How about Joel Osteen, bro? Joel Osteen. How about that dude?
right.
When there was when there was the floods, and he wouldn't even let people into the church because they had just changed the carpet, man. This guy, you just watch this guy, man. He just exudes money, and not just him, but a lot of these people. They have their private jets. They got these folks on the ground in these poor communities, man. Were just and so humble and work so hard, and it's such amazing work that's not even Christianity. They're completely different worlds. Yeah, it's like mathematics and English literature, So
Like what they're preaching isn't actually equating to like all the way supporting like the human life the way other versions of like Christianity do. Like for example, like you said, changing the carpets over like the human life of like a catastrophe that's happening where you
Well, listen, I can pick up the New Testament and I can pick out the things that I need that some of these televangelists do. They go up and they talk and they say like, hey, Jesus said this, that, and the other thing. And they put it all up on the screen, and then they preach, and they got their Bible, and they say, give me money. We need money. I got to buy a new jet or whatever. Or they just say, give money to the church. This is the church. Look around you. This great place with all this 10,000 seats and the great sound system and all of these things. You go out in the lobby and you got everything is fine. It's okay. That's fine. Not a problem. I got that. Right. But they can pick out what they need to get people to do that. So you can use the Gospels to make a lot of different arguments. But the liberation theologians, they picked out things that said, I don't think God wanted this level of poverty. I do not think this would be acceptable to Jesus if Jesus were to return to earth, right? I don't. And whereas Joel Osteen and those types of people, they would say like, well, if Jesus returned to earth, my church would be the first one he'd come to, because he'd hear the great sound system, and we have a great bass player and a drummer, and we have killer music, and everybody's happy. And that, of course, that's where Jesus would come.
Yeah.
So that,
How,
yeah.
how do you view Christianity in politics, like different from liberation theology? Like the way that Christianity seems to be, I don't know, like I think about like Republican, I think like usually like stronger relationship. And I might, this is just my opinion, which could be wrong, but just like a strong relationship to Christianity with like Republicans or like red, and then like
No, I don't think so. Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's not. They just wove Christianity into their political platforms in a different kind of
Right.
way. Like, use
Okay.
political
What's that
platforms.
different?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think that all people there's not much of a difference in terms of people's personal relationship to their religion and to God and so on, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. People just make slightly different arguments. Yeah. But certainly, man, all I will say is that if you travel to some communities, if you traveled to these communities and you read through your Bible, your New Testament, the Gospels, let's just say, and then you come back home and you go to one of these really big mega churches, right, which has the killer sound. And I always go, when I have a chance, I go to mega church. I mean, I love this. There's nothing like walking into a mega church with the bass and the drums, just and a nice organ, like, oh my God, guitar, really awesome guitar player playing some riffs. And then you just compare it. You compare the two. There's just this different world. Man. It's just a different world. That's all. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know that. Yeah, I see some people say, some people seeing that like, yeah, you don't need religion for morality. It's like, nah, you don't. I don't need it. But I'm drawn. I think the vision of Christ is probably like still the one that's in my consciousness more, and it's because of my experience, my 8 years in Latin America. I mean, off and on. I don't mean I was working with liberation theology. I didn't live there 8 years, but lived there about a year and a half. Yeah, it's that has shaped my thinking and my relationship with the creator, the life force, whatever that is. Yeah. Yeah, no, the contrast between poverty and decadence it has nothing to do with Jesus' mission. I don't know what Jesus' mission was, but the point. But the fact is, there are these different realities out there, and both realities are drawing from that same life of Jesus, and so they're drawing on different things to make sense of it. Just like the wealthy members hierarchy of the Catholic Church was drawing on the teachings of Jesus to justify their superiority and their wealth and their power.
In religious scholarship, people talk a lot about renegotiation with biblical texts. And one of the ways that we do that is deciding on what to focus on. So a lot of times we might see, well, Jesus's mission or his message or the most important things were this, this, and this. But by saying and doing that, you're also ignoring other things that you, for many different reasons, aren't including. So you know, and then we have other things within the biblical text to indicate some stories of Jesus's life were more concrete, are repeated, are more historically accurate, or more likely to have happened than other stories that are, here and there and have other things within the history of writing down the text. But all that being said, it just depends on what you and your particular denomination or your particular faith group wants to focus on particularly.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I agree with that, man. Yeah. Hey, by the way, I remember when I was in Tampa once. You know Paula White? Paula White is like one of Trump's. She's like one of his main pastors. And first off, I never heard.
I know Paula
Trump.
Dean.
Yeah, Paula White. Maybe it's Dean White. Paula White. She's like one of his major people. She's kind of has blondish hair or whatever. I don't know. She's about my age. She had a church with her husband, and then they got divorced, and then she took it over. Anyway, I was in her church down in Tampa, and yeah, it was amazing, man. The musicians were amazing. The whole experience was amazing. I went with my sister, and I was walking into the church, like going down the aisle, like she wanted to sit in the back, and I'm like, nah, man, we're going right to the front, man. I want to be where the action is. It was such a intense experience. It was such a cool experience. And she never even did a sermon or anything. It was just like music and collecting money and dancing and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, lots of dancing. We were dancing. And they sent the collection plate around. And I don't know, I pulled out $20 or something. Like, dude, this is worth $20. I don't know what you guys are going to spend it on, but give it to the band members. Man, that was like, but yeah, it was cool. It was cool. You got to keep an open mind, Elijah. You never know what you're going to encounter. Right, Jeff? God. So when I see Paula laying her hands on Trump, I'm like, yeah, I remember you almost laid your hands on me because she did an altar call, and I almost went up there. I'm like, dude, I gotta get more of this. Like, what do we got? But then I realized it wasn't the Christianity; it was the music I was feeling. It wasn't. Maybe it was the spirit of Jesus. I don't know what I was feeling, but in any case, I had to leave, so I couldn't go back. And then I go to other churches; it's not the same. So, yeah, so. Life is complex, my friend.
We did a poll. Oh, go ahead, Elijah.
No, I don't even know what question to ask you because like it's moving so fast and there's so many like paradoxes or like complexities within like everything you're saying. It's like hard. It's crazy. It's a lot.
Yeah. That's kind of wild. Hey, look at the poll. Okay, not shocked. Very happy. Trump had it in the bag. Man, I did not think Trump had it in the bag. I'll tell you that. I didn't think anyone had it in the bag.
I didn't think anybody had it in the bag, but I didn't think that Harris was going to win. I had hope, personally, that she would. However, when I went to a rally in Wisconsin, my goodness, at that moment I was like,
Trump rally.
I went to a Trump rally in Wisconsin. I was like, there's a real shot that he's going to win. Any Democrat who thinks that, I don't have to vote this year because Trump is going to lose, I was like, that is not the reality of the situation.
Yeah. I was just hoping that it wasn't a really close race.
Yeah.
She won by a hair. That just was like, oh my God.
That's worst case.
Yeah. It's better that he won by the margin that he did because now the Democrats and supporters of critics of Trump, they've got to at least say like, hey, dude, you're not even like, this is clearly in political terms, it's closer, much closer to a mandate than any. Man, I don't want to use that word, but no, this is like, okay, so sit back and let's ride this thing out, man. Let's see where we go.
Steven asked how many people voted. There were around 67 million people who voted for Harris and 72 who voted for Trump. That's 100 and give or take 39 million people, 140, let's round up. So in terms of our overall population, it's a little less than a third or more than a third. But then out of people over the age of 18 who can vote, I'm not sure what that percentage is, but it was definitely less than last time, but it was still a pretty good amount.
Yeah. Eric Brown, your Wisconsin county, Trump killed it, and it's a really poor county. Well, yeah, because Democrats got nothing to offer. You know what I mean? What are they going to offer? Like, that's the thing. The whole Democratic Party, man, they gave up. when they align themselves with neoliberalism. And so let's go to Wisconsin. Look at like one after another. Isn't Harley Davidson in Wisconsin? Or wait, Harley Davidson used to be in Wisconsin. Think of all the manufacturing plants that kept families going for generations, right? And they're suddenly in Mexico and Taiwan and China, and so it's like, yeah, that's neoliberalism, man. That's what you got. Yeah. So yeah, so we'll see. All right. Hey, yeah, thanks, Eric. Yeah. We do have a populist for president. So yeah, we're good. It's all right. Yeah, just keep calling him a populist. That's what Trump doesn't want to be an autocrat. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to play golf as much as he does, man. Trump just wants to be worshipped. So anyway, someday we will talk about propaganda, actually, Edward Bernays and so on. But I really have to go. I've been talking to I Thursday after class I got sick, so I had a sore throat and I was battling a cold, and so I'm still like a little. Wait, Dexter, I don't think I'm conflating Taiwan and China. It's two completely different worlds. I don't know. Wait, that's not a thing for me, man. So, all right. So listen, we're going to be out class tomorrow. I'm not sure what we're going to do tomorrow. I'm not going to talk about the elections though, because, yeah, Trump wants others to love Trump like Trump loves Trump. Yeah, that's kind of it, man. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Just like
okay. Well, you should love you, dude. Well, that's the message in the West, right? Certainly in the U.S. Love yourself, man. Love yourself. It's a message all over the world. Love yourself. Love thyself. It starts there. If you love yourself, then you're less likely to. You'll be happy with yourself, and you just not hate other people, right? So, like, yeah, love yourself. So Trump just took that to the next. Yeah. All right, Dexter. I'll talk about it at some point. Taiwan and China, but I never talk about it. So why are you saying I conflate them when I never? You're telling me then talk about it someday. Well, if I don't talking about it, I'm not conflating them, right? So like, all right, so yeah, I'm not conflating them. All right, man. Okay, so listen. All right, we got to get out. I really got to go. Elijah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks for holding on.
I'm just listening.
Yeah. All right, man. Jeff.
We'll be live tomorrow.
We will be live tomorrow. Thanks, man.
4:30.
See y'all. Thanks for hanging on. Some of you have been on for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Damn, we started at 3:00. This is our longest stream ever. All right. All right. See you all. I gotta go.